first. It just never stops, does it? Not just the news cycle, but also the gaslighting and manipulation of the Democrats and their not-so-silent partners in the American press. Let's just stop and consider this for a moment. In less than 100 days, Americans go to the polls. Less than 2 weeks ago, via a social media post and after what has been reported as a strange and possibly medical incident in Las Vegas, Joe Biden stepped down as the presidential candidate for 2024. And the number of press conferences for the presumptive nominee, Kamala Harris, whose own previous efforts to win the presidency ended without winning a single primary vote, well, she has held precisely 0 press conferences and sat down for precisely 0 major media interviews. Why could this be? Could it be that she's too busy out on the campaign trail with twerking backup dancers?
Hey! 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 Yeah!
We're bringing dignity back to politics, folks, aren't we? Well, that's the Democrats for you. Or could it be that when it comes to public policy, everything Kamala Harris has touched has turned into a disaster? A disaster she is now running away from at 1,000,000 miles an hour as she attempts to tack back to the center. So, let's find out. Who is the real Kamala Harris? Well, on energy, the environment, and the economy, she has been, as I say, a disaster. During her time in the Senate, Harris supported the cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline, which wiped out 11,000 jobs and stopped 830,000 barrels of oil per day from coming into America. And she's behind a ban on fracking, which is going to be tough to explain in places like Pennsylvania. This bit from a little comedy sketch she did some years back sums her up well.
Well, let me start by saying this. Climate change is the single greatest threat facing our world today. That's why I am committed to passing a Green New Deal, creating clean jobs, and finally putting an end to fracking once and for all.
But it's no laughing matter, because when she was border czar, yes, I said it, as border czar, Kamala Harris was also a mess. Like the Labour Party in Australia, she and the Democrats just don't have it in their DNA to be tough on illegal migration. In fact, she doesn't think illegal migrants are illegal at all.
Wrong to somehow suggest that an undocumented immigrant is a criminal. Being an undocumented immigrant is not a crime. I know what a crime looks like. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. 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 An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal.
Unearthed footage of Harris as a senator in 2017 also shows her scolding Americans for saying Merry Christmas because of a fight to give illegals a pathway to citizenship.
When we all sing happy tunes and sing Merry Christmas and wish each other Merry Christmas, these children are not going to have a Merry Christmas. How dare we speak Merry Christmas? How dare we?
And despite plenty of terrorists sneaking into the U.S. under her watch as border czar, she also doesn't think we should talk about radical Islamic terrorism.
You must have the courage to object when they use that term, radical Islamic terrorism, which ignores how Muslims have overwhelmingly been the greatest victims of terror.
On issues of race, she's also been a disaster, hardly a uniter, despite her tough talk about being a former prosecutor. She's also revealed herself to be soft on crime, tough on cops. Now, she fell for the Jussie Smollett hoax immediately, calling it a modern-day lynching. That tweet's still up on her account, by the way. She urged people to donate to a bail fund for Black Lives Matter rioters that put criminals, including someone who would later go on to commit murder, back on the streets. She supported the defund the police movement.
You know, for far too long, the status quo thinking has been to believe that by putting more police on the street, you're going to have more safety. And that's just wrong.
Does that mean you support proposals like what we've seen in Los Angeles, Mayor Eric Garcetti saying, take some of the money from policing, about $150 million?
I applaud Eric Garcetti for doing what he's done. Defund the police. The issue behind it is that we need to reimagine how we are creating safety.
And she even said that the 2020 Summer of Love riots, remember those, would not stop, nor should they.
But they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And this is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not. And we should not.
So this is the real Kamala Harris. And of course, there's a lot more, but I've only got so much time with you. This is why I think Trump needs to debate her, and the press needs to start asking hard questions, because so far her campaign seems based on vibes and calling people weird. But I'm not sure that this vibe can survive contact with reality.